Hi, I'm Dan Schmitt. I do a motorcycle racing TV show called Team Chicago Challenge. I'm here doing at the EAA AirVenture 2022. My email is teamdan45@gmail.com, and I love to hear from my audience. My website is teamchicago.tv. So we're going to look at what's going on at the EAA Adventure for 2022, Experimental Aircraft Association. The annual event, huge event. I mean, there must be over 200,000. Just check out what's going on at the EAA AirVenture 2022. And, we have a great time up here in Wisconsin.
This is the front gate to Whitman Field, the location for AirVenture 2022. Now, if we look at statistics from 2019, the last year before COVID, total show planes was 2,758. 1,057 were home-built aircraft, and 592 set up campsites, so they stayed for the entire week. 939 vintage airplanes, over 400 warbirds, 188 ultralights and light sport aircraft, 105 seaplanes, 62 aerobatic aircraft, and I never get a chance to see it all. Mainly I concentrate on the warbirds, as we see a couple helicopters for sale. Nearly everybody who is anybody in the aviation industry in the USA and around the world are here at the EAA AirVenture. As we take a look at some of the multi-engine aircraft, A-26, B-25s, a Grumman Avenger, a good group of middleweight bombers. First, we're looking at the Douglas A-26 Invader. This aircraft first flew on August 7, 1941. It's got a top speed of 275 miles per hour. Got two Wright R-26 twin Cyclone engines. It's a middleweight bomber and ground attack aircraft. Next, we're looking at Lucky Lady. Lucky Lady is a B-25J that is based in Blaine, Minnesota. As you can see, it's well-polished aluminum skin, and I know that takes a lot of work to keep aluminum this beautiful. As we look in the bomb bay of Lady Luck, the B-25s could carry 3,200 pounds of bombs. Next, we're looking at Miss Mitchell. Miss Mitchell served in the 310th Bomb Group, part of the 57th Bomb Wing of the 12th Air Force that fought in North Africa and Italy. This aircraft completed 130 wartime missions, as we see this half-ton truck selling some souvenirs for Miss Mitchell. We are now looking at a Grumman TBM Avenger torpedo bomber. This flew with a crew of 3, pilot, rear gunner, navigator, bombardier, in the lower section of this plane. This plane is stationed in Peru, Illinois, and I had the opportunity to talk to the crew chief, Bill Reuter.
You asked me a question.
All right, so what's your name?
My name's Bill.
Bill what?
Reuter.
Reuter. Okay, so what's your involvement with this aircraft?
My buddy owns it, and him and I have been working on it for 14 years to get it in the air, to keep it in the air.
So where'd you find it? What condition?
It was in Wahpeton, North Dakota, and it was sitting in a hangar in there. It hadn't flown for several years, and so it was purchased under the influence of alcohol.
Oh, really?
I'll just say it that way, yeah.
So you've been working on it for the 14 years?
Yes.
How long's it been flying now?
Well, it's been flying that whole time. We did lose the engine a few years ago over in Pennsylvania, and it was down for a year and a half or so.
So tell me about the engine. What kind of engine this got?
It's got a R2600-20 Wright 14 cylinders.
14 cylinders, double stack of seven.
Two rows of 7.
Right.
Yep. It's 1900 horsepower.
And was this used in the service?
This one has history in the Pacific with some island invasions and things like that. And, did some attacking of ships. It's got a couple bullet holes in it yet.
Oh, really?
Yep.
So it's been a good. How many? Now this carries 3 people, correct?
That's correct. Pilot, turret gunner, and navigator, radio man, radar, down in the belly. Yep. So.
Okay, your name again?
Bill Reuter.
Thank you, Bill. As we see some of the small rockets that could be loaded on this aircraft, I should point out after 1943, there weren't that many ships torpedo anymore, so this aircraft was used as a lightweight bomber. Now we're looking at Devil Dog. Devil Dog is a United States Marine Corps PBJ, which is based on the B-25, and I had opportunity to talk to the crew chief, John Jackson.
John Jackson. I'm a crew chief on the B-25 Devil Dog. I've been a member since 2019, and we flew up yesterday from Georgetown, Texas, and we had one stop in Kansas to refuel. But this Devil Dog's got 2 Wright Cyclone engines, 2,600 cubic inches, 1,700 horsepower each engine, burns 120 gallons an hour.
So being a crew chief, what's your responsibility week to week?
I put gas in it, make sure it's got plenty of oil, add oil as needed, clean the windshield. I ride in the 3rd seat during flights to monitor instruments and record all the Hobbs meters readings to record the accurate time on the plane. And also during flights, I make sure of passenger security and egress out of the plane and around the plane during the ride program.
So how many people are involved with your whole crew? I know you got a good number of volunteers.
We have to when we fly a minimum of 3 crew, pilot, co-pilot, and 1 crew chief. When we do the rides program, we have to have 4 because we have to have a crew chief in the rear to take care of the passengers in the rear. We can take a total of 6 passengers during the ride program.
So how often do you do rides?
We do rides about every air show. At this air show in Oshkosh, we can't because EAA is the controlling body.
Too busy, too crazy.
Well,
right?
They have their own B-25 they're selling rides on, so they don't want competition. But you know, it's we've done several rides this year. In Tyler, Texas, we did quite a few 2 weeks ago. And we were also there with the B-29 bomber, Doc, from Wichita, Kansas.
Right.
And when we were putting in 400 gallons of gas in our plane, he was adding 2,000 gallons to his plane.
So this is U.S. Marine Corps DBJ.
Patrol Bomber Model J, that was the model that the North American Aviation was producing in 1944 when this was produced in Kansas City, Kansas.
Thank you, John. As we see this chart that shows many different configurations of the B-25, I should point out in the Pacific Theater, the B-25 became a ground attack aircraft. And one of the commanders named Kenny worked with Pappy Gunn, and they came up with this system of putting 50 caliber machine guns in the nose of the B-25, along with 4 50 caliber machine guns, 2 on either side. This compartment earlier was occupied by the bombardier, but now it became a ground attack aircraft. We are now looking at Panchito. Panchito was a Disney character, and this aircraft is stationed in Delaware. A couple of years ago, I had the opportunity to talk to the owner of this wonderful aircraft. And I spotted this sign, so if you are a pilot and you would like to learn how to fly a B-25, contact the folks in Delaware with Panchito. Now let's take a look at some of the air show. This is a twin-engine Beechcraft built in 1943. Flying it is Matt Younkin, and he has been flying this aircraft in his air shows going all the way back to 2008. Let's watch this vintage aircraft perform before the thousands of viewers and visitors at the EAA AirVenture 2022.
Turn the aircraft around far to your right. He'll bring it back. Your right to your left. And we're going to count these points on this roll really loud. So I want to hear you. Oshkosh, here we go. Matt Younkin from the right, the 8-point roll. Let's count them. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, louder, 6, 7, 8. Yeah, give yourselves a huge round of applause. Great job, everybody. Well, that Twin Beech aircraft that Matt is flying in 1945, it was transferred from the Army to the United States Department of Commerce for the airplane service.
Thank you, Matt, for the great demonstration in that World War II AT-7C built by Beechcraft twin engine show plane. And now we're seeing a C-47 parking in the bomber area with the warbirds. This C-47 is Placid Lassie. This is a genuine World War II hero, and this aircraft is a veteran of D-Day. This is one of the hundreds of C-47s that delivered paratroopers, supplies, and towed gliders the night before the invasion of Normandy on June 6, 1944. This is one of the aircraft that worked that evening on June 5th, all day June 6th, and probably right on through until everything was supplied to the troops in Normandy. As you can see, this aircraft has the invasion stripes, 3 white stripes, 2 black stripes. Every aircraft flying during the invasion, every American aircraft had to be marked with these stripes. Right next to this aircraft is Yukon Soudough. This is a C-47 or DC-3, and it was flown by an aircraft company in Canada. I had the opportunity to talk to the crew chief as he tells us the story about this aircraft. Let's meet Kent Casady.
My name is Kent Casady. I live in San Diego, California, and I am one of the stewards of this airplane, which is named Yukon Soudough. And this airplane was, for probably 20 years, I think, a passenger hauler up in Canada. I think the home base was Whitehorse. That's where Air North still is today. And they decided around late 1998, I think it was, they started getting rid of their piston engine passenger haulers, DC-3s, C-47s, and started switching to jets. So in about that time zone, 1998, I think it was, EAA acquired the airplane from Air North, and EAA was going to use it as a support ship for aluminum overcast, their B-17 that flies around the country. And then shortly after, they put it in the Bachelor shop over here,
which is right behind
this airport.
Right.
They do the conversions of these airplanes, put turbine engines on them, and convert a $100,000 airplane into a $6 or $7 million airplane.
New aerotronics, and all that.
Yeah. So, about, I think, 2 years into that ownership by EAA, and after they did a ton of restoration work on this airplane at their hangar and at the Bachelor hangar, another EAA member passed away, and he and his wife owned a beautiful DC-3, and they donated that to EAA. So now EAA is sitting there with two of these
became
airplanes.
Available.
And they looked at the one that had, apparently I'm told, had a nice corporate interior, and they decided that was the more favorable airplane for their use. So they sold this one. And at that time, I think it was about in the 2000-2002 era, it was bought by 3 guys, the Van Kirk brothers, Malcolm Van Kirk and Steve Van Kirk, who are aviation guys from day one, and aviation history in their family. They're some relative, I don't know whether it was a distant uncle or what it was. I think the name was Dutch Van Kirk, and he was the navigator on Enola Gay in World War II. So they came to this airplane, the two brothers and a third guy by the name of Dave Ryder, all those guys in the Hagerstown, Frederick area, and Dave Ryder had a business there. It's currently called Ryder Jet Center, and so those guys were the new stewards of the airplane. And then shortly after they had it, I forget what year it was, but maybe 2012 or somewhere in there, it was sitting outside. A microburst came through, it got damaged in a windstorm. One wing tie down broke loose, it windmilled around, and the tail, right in front of the tail wheel, fuselage struck a tie down block that was above ground. Dumb. But anyway, this 3-foot cube of concrete was sitting there. The fuselage struck that, tore a hole in the bottom of the fuselage back by the tail wheel. You can see the repair. And so that was a long time getting repaired and getting the airplane back in service. So in about 12 years, the first flight of this airplane was about 2 or 3 weeks ago. It was the 12th of July. And so it's now back in the air. And in the course of that repair, carburetors, fuel pumps, oil pumps, hoses, everything forward of the firewall was replaced.
So you fly this?
I am working on getting my type rating for this airplane. I'm a long-time pilot. I've got all the hours that the insurance company needs. At the moment, I'm SIC, so co-pilot's second in command rated, and soon to get my PIC, pilot in command.
Thank you, Kent, for that wonderful tale. And lucky for me, I got to catch up with the owner of the A26. Let's talk to Vincent Quadrani as he tells us about the Silver Dragon.
Hey, my name is Vincent Quadrani. This is the A26 Invader Silver Dragon. I am the owner. This is a 1944 Douglas A26 Invader. Has two Pratt & Whitney R2800-79s, or 2,000 horsepower apiece. This airplane went into combat in April of 1944 with the 9th Air Force 386 Bomb Group, 552nd Bomb Squadron. Fought in Europe, fought the Germans, and it came back, and then it got deployed to Korea, and I think it sat reserve in France for a while, and then it came back again, and it was sold Army surplus, and then it was flown down to Nicaragua, and it was sold to the government in 1962 to 62 to 79, I believe, and fought the Sandinistas, and they're insurgent, and it was a mercenary since. A guy named Talashay bought the airplane and flew it home from Nicaragua. It came back and it was maintained in airworthy status, and here it is today.
So it's never had a real restoration then?
Not a real restoration, it just had continuous airworthy.
So the engines are original? And
their original engines, they have been fixed. They had gone through some issues. We've gone through some maintenance problems, but they've been overhauled. They've been removed and inspected and replaced as necessary parts. It hasn't been truly overhauled. So
right.
It's just a general airworthy condition aircraft.
So have you been to EAA before?
I've been coming to EAA my whole life.
Oh,
Ever
really?
since I was a baby, yes.
Yeah. So you've been in aviation your whole life?
Whole life. Yes, sir.
So you're a pilot too?
I am. I fly for Atlas Air. I'm a 737.
Really?
Yes, sir.
Really?
Yes, sir. I fly cargo.
That's great.
Yes.
Did you fly this one too?
I'm learning. I'm actually in flight training in this airplane.
Right.
I've had this airplane a year. I've crewed it for several other years for the previous owner, and I am just starting to get some flight training done.
Well, the thing we should point out, there's no steering on these, correct? So you got to...
Steering? This has got a full cast ring nose wheel, so you use differential thrust and braking.
Oh, right. And that's the trick of landing and taking off.
Yeah, just get it aimed straight where you want it to go and power it up and go.
Right. So we'll be seeing you again next year?
We should, as long as the airplane don't break down. You should see us here every year. I like to be here every year.
It's a beautiful plane.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Vincent, and good luck with your new aircraft, this A-26 Silver Dragon. And over in the Warbird Plaza, I spot this F-8 F-2 Bearcat. This aircraft is painted to look like the second aircraft used by the Blue Angels. The first aircraft by the Blue Angels was the F-6F. And when I seen the Blue Angels the first time in 1959 with the opening of the St. Lawrence Seaway, they were already flying the swept-wing jets, the F-9F Cougars. I was at Montrose Beach in 1959 where they had a mock attack landing on Montrose Beach to celebrate the opening of the St. Lawrence Seaway, and even the Queen came in her yacht and docked right at Buckingham Fountain. For more information on the EAA, the Experimental Aircraft Association, their websites are EAA.org and AirVenture.org. And make sure you join us next year, July 21st through July 30th, 2023. This was the greatest show on earth. To contact me, it's teamdan45@gmail.com. I love to hear from my audience. Remember, you can always search on YouTube with Dan Schmitt Motorcycle Racing for great motorcycle racing action, Dan Schmitt Politics to learn what makes America great. And I highly encourage you to visit the World of Motorcycle Museum. They're in Winnemac, Indiana, 4 miles south of North Judson. They're right off of Indiana Highway 39. It's a great trip and a great collection of motorcycles.